Okay, these are some corrections for the test. I'm just going to start with the first problem. You're going to be factoring out the greatest common factor. We talked about this just before we did the test. When you factor out the greatest common factor, you look at the three terms you have, if there's three. It's a little darker than I wanted. You look at the three terms you've got, and you say, what do they all have in common? These three terms are all divisible by 3. That means we put the 3 in front of a set of parentheses. When you're factoring out, you're not going to be able to divide it. It's not equal to something. If it were equal to something, we could just divide by 3. But since that's not there, we can't do that. So I'm factoring out a 3, and I'm going to see what's left to go inside the parentheses. So when I factor out a 3, I'm going to be left with x squared. I'm going to be left with 4x, and I'm going to be left with 6. And that's all. That's all you do. That's how you factor that. This is called factoring, and we're not solving anything. So for the second question, when you look to see what do these three things have in common, several people wanted to say 8. And you can't say 8 because 8 and 2 and 24, the highest number that they're all divisible by is 2. Now you could take negative 2 out, and if you didn't take negative out, that's okay. But if you take negative 2 out, then you're left with 4x squared minus 1x plus 12. You could have written a 1 here if you needed to. But that's it. All we're doing is factoring it out. Factoring something out means take it outside of the parentheses, creating two different groups. And here's how you know if you did it right. If I distribute this back, then I should get back to the original answer. If I don't get back to the original answer, then I haven't done it right. So for the third problem, when we look at our factors, we only have two factors. What are these two factors having, or these two terms? What do these two terms have in common? They're both divisible by 9. When I take the 9 out, this leaves 9x squared plus 1. Because if you take 9 and you divide 9 out, which is what we did here, then it leaves 1. And then if you check it, if I multiply this back, I will get 81x squared plus 9. That's how I know that I have factored it correctly, is because it works when I redistribute it. For the next type of problems, I've picked 4 and 7 because they're very similar. And each of these problems was only worth 1 point, because x squared minus 100, if you rewrite it, that I'm looking for what multiplies to give me 100, or negative 100, and adds to give me 0. And there's only one way for that to happen. It has to be plus 10 and minus 10, because when I multiply 10 times 10, I get 100, and when I add positive 10 with negative 10, I get 0. And that's the only way that'll work. And if you notice, 100, the square root of 100 is 10, which is the most important reason probably that this works. So x plus 10 times x minus 10 is your solution. On number 7, I need it to multiply to be negative 6 and add to be negative 1. And so I can't use 6 and 1, because 6 and 1 will never give me negative 1 if I add them. So you have to use negative 3 and positive 2. And most people got this problem right. Alright, number 5 was one of the questions that was the most missed. And there's one or two main reasons that this happened. The first one is that these three terms have a common factor. They're all divisible by 2. If you don't take the common factor out first, then you're pretty likely to get the problem wrong. But once you take that 2 out there, it has to stay out there. So when I go to the next step, I'm still going to have the 2. And the next step in my problem is to take this 3 and multiply it. So I'm going to have x squared plus 5x minus 6. So in the next step for this problem now, I need to know what multiplies to give me negative 6 and adds to give me positive 5. So the factors that give me 6 are 6 and 1 or 2 and 3. 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 can both give me 5, but it has to multiply to give me negative 6. So I have to say x minus 1 and x plus 6, because negative 1 times positive 6 does give me negative 6, and negative 1 plus 6 gives me positive 5. If you try to use 2 and 3 for this, it won't work because they would have to both be positive, which would not give you negative 6. So now you can see my factors. I have 2 times x minus 1 times x plus 6. But if you multiply by a number in the beginning, you have to divide by that number in the end. So we're dividing now by 3 and dividing now by 3. This is a factoring problem. We're not solving. It's not equal to anything. So once we simplify it, we have to simplify the 6 over 3 because it becomes x plus 2. But 1 over 3 does not simplify, so you have to squeeze the 3. So 2 times 3x minus 1 times x plus 2. And that's your solution. So you have to take the greatest common factor out first, then you have to multiply the first term to the last, and then you have to find the factors that work. This has a lot of steps, that's why it's worth 4 points. Alright, the next problem that was missed a lot, I was really disappointed because this problem, number 8, this problem was on the quiz that I went over with each person individually. It was the exact same problem. The first thing you have to do, first thing you should do is check to see, do these 3 terms have anything in common? 9 and 30 are divisible by 3, but 25 is not. So 30 and 25 are divisible by 5, but 9 is not, so we can't do that. So we have to multiply the 9 to the end. So I have x squared plus 30x plus 225. Now this would be great if you used your calculator and you look for the factors, then the factors that work for this are 15 times 15. 15 times 15 is 225, 15 plus 15 is 30. But what did you do first? You multiplied by 9. What do I have to do now? I have to divide by 9, and you have to simplify. You have to simplify. If you don't simplify, then you lose a point. Now, this simplified to 5 over 3, that's as far as it'll go. We have to squeeze the 3. We have to squeeze the 3. So you have 3x plus 5 times 3x plus 5. And that's your solution right there. Okay, a couple of problems of solving, and then this video will be over. First of all, I've got number 11. I picked number 11 because this one has a greatest common factor. These are all divisible by 7. Since it's equal to 0, if you wanted to just divide everything by 7, you could. So this would be 3x squared minus 11x minus 4. But you can't just stop there. You have to go through the process of factoring. So bring the 3 over. X squared minus 11x minus 12. Still equal to 0. Factor 12. So I could use 3 and 4, but that's not going to give me 11. I could use 2 and 6, but that's not going to give me 11. So I have to use negative 12 and positive 1 because that's the only one that adds up to negative 11. But I multiplied by 3, so I have to divide by 3. So now my factors are x minus 4 and x plus 1/3. When you solve, and only when you solve, you do not have to squeeze anything, because your solution is easier to find if you don't. So x minus 4 gives me a solution of x equals 4, and x plus 1/3 gives me a solution of x equals negative 1/3. Your solutions are always opposite your factors, and that's how you work that out. This problem was worth 5 points. You had to do essentially 5 steps. Okay, the last one on this video is number 14. This was also on the quiz that you did that I went over with everybody. You just had to start off by adding 2 so that it's equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, then you can't solve. But you could divide here everything by 2. And if you divide by 2, it does make an easier problem. But I'm going to show you this problem not dividing by 2 because a lot of people didn't, and I want you to see how it would work. So if I multiply the 12 to the end, multiply the 12 to the end, so x squared minus 10x plus 24 equals 0. This is going to be x minus 6 and x minus 4. Because when you multiply those numbers, you get 24, and when you add them, you get negative 10. A lot of people wanted to give this as the solution. But remember, you multiplied by 12. You have to divide by 12. So I have x minus 1/2, and I have x minus 1/3, and my solutions are x equals 1/2 and x equals 1/3. Now, why couldn't we have used 12 and 2? If you use 12 and 2, you would have to have had negative 12 and positive 2. If you multiply negative 12 times positive 2, you don't get positive 24. You get negative 24. So that doesn't work. You can't do that. And so those are your solutions.